May 1940. The Allied forces believed their borders were impenetrable. France sat comfortably behind the massive Maginot Line, convinced that no army could break through. But deep within the dark forests of the Ardennes, a metallic monster was waking up, moving with terrifying speed, striking from the shadows, and leaving absolute chaos in its wake. They appeared out of nowhere, attacked, and vanished before the enemy could even fire back. They were so fast, so unpredictable, that even the German High Command lost track of them. The Allies called them a nightmare. History calls them the Ghost Division. Behind this terrifying force was one man, General Erwin Rommel. Long before he became the Desert Fox in Africa, Rommel was given command of the 7th Panzer Division. It was a risky move. Rommel was an infantryman, not a tank commander, but he had a radical vision. While traditional military doctrine dictated that tanks should move slowly alongside infantry, Rommel believed in absolute speed. On May 10, 1940, his tanks crossed the Belgian border. Within days, they bypassed the Allied armies entirely, moving so fast that their own supply lines couldn't keep up. Rommel's tactics were chaotic, but brilliantly effective. He ordered his tanks to fire constantly while moving, creating total confusion. French defenses, completely unprepared for this Blitzkrieg, collapsed in panic. Rommel's speed was so extreme that even the German High Command lost contact with him. They didn't know where their own division was, because they would appear out of nowhere, strike with devastating force, and vanish before the enemy could react. Both the French and the Germans began calling them by a terrifying new name, the Ghost Division. For weeks, the Ghost Division defied all rules of warfare. They moved faster, struck harder, and disappeared quicker than anyone thought possible. By the time the French realized what was happening, Rommel's tanks were already far behind their lines, heading straight for the heart of France. The advance seemed unstoppable, leaving the Allies paralyzed with fear. But as the map of Europe redrew overnight, one terrifying question remained. How did Rommel achieve this near-impossible feat with only a handful of tanks? And what secret tactics changed the face of war forever? To understand how the Ghost Division achieved the impossible, we have to look at Germany's secret weapon, Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. Before World War II, armies moved slowly, heavily relying on infantry foot soldiers. But the German military changed the rules entirely. They synchronized fast-moving tanks, motorized infantry, and low-flying attack aircraft into one single, devastating punch. The goal was simple: do not fight the enemy front line, but smash through it at maximum speed, bypass their strong points, and paralyze their leadership before they even realize a war has begun. But moving a massive steel army at breakneck speed created a nightmare for the generals. Tanks are useless without fuel, and heavy artillery is useless without ammunition. If the supply trucks slowed down even for a few hours, Rommel's entire advance would freeze, turning his proud tanks into sitting ducks. To solve this, the German army utilized a massive fleet of rugged Opel Blitz trucks and specialized logistics units. These supply columns drove day and night through dust and mud, risking everything to keep up with the furious pace of the frontline tanks. This relentless pace created what military historians call the speed trap. Rommel didn't wait for his infantry or heavy artillery to catch up. He knew that in modern warfare, speed was a better shield than armor. While the French army was still reading reports and waiting for orders from their distant headquarters, German panzers were already miles ahead, causing absolute chaos. But this extreme speed came with a massive risk. Rommel was cutting himself off from his own high command, leaving his division completely isolated in enemy territory. As Rommel pushed deeper, it wasn't just the Allies who were terrified. His own German high command was in absolute panic. Officers in Berlin thought Rommel was losing his mind. He was moving so fast that he had gone completely off their communication grids. General Halder and even Hitler himself feared that the French would cut off Rommel's thin supply line and destroy his entire division. Orders were sent to Rommel to halt immediately. But the stubborn general did something unthinkable. He ignored his superiors, turned off his radios, and kept pushing forward. To understand why the French lines collapsed so easily, we must look at their ultimate shield, the Maginot Line. After the horrors of the First World War, France built the most concrete, heavily fortified border defense system in human history, spanning hundreds of miles. This multi-billion-dollar wall was filled with underground bunkers, heavy artillery turrets, and elite troops. The French believed this fortress was absolutely impenetrable. They were convinced that no army on Earth, not even Hitler's war machine, could ever break through it. But the French made one fatal historical mistake. The Maginot Line didn't cover the entire border, it stopped right before the Ardennes forest. French military experts believed that this thick, hilly, and heavily wooded forest was completely impassable for tanks. They thought nature itself would protect them. Because of this blind confidence, France left the Ardennes heavily unguarded, placing only their weakest, least experienced reserve divisions to watch the forest. They expected a slow, predictable war, completely unaware that Germany was about to turn the impossible into reality. On May 13, 1940, the silence of the Ardennes was shattered. Hundreds of German tanks and thousands of vehicles slammed into the forest, cutting down trees and forging their own roads through the rough terrain. The French commanders couldn't believe their eyes when reports started flooding in. Rommel's Ghost Division was leading the spearhead, moving at a speed that defied all military logic. By the time the French High Command ordered reinforcements, the Germans had already crossed the forest and were staring right at the Meuse River, the last natural line of defense protecting France. The Meuse River was France's last hope. The French had blown up all the bridges, leaving Rommel's tanks trapped on the eastern bank, under a hail of machine gun and artillery fire. To cross, Rommel needed his infantry to go first in small rubber boats. But the French defense was brutal, turning the river into a deadly trap. Recognizing the crisis, Rommel did something no ordinary general would do. He personally walked down to the water's edge, right into the enemy gunfire, to direct the crossing himself, demanding that his men push forward no matter the cost. Once the Meuse River was crossed, there was nothing left to hold Rommel back. He ordered his engineers to quickly build pontoon bridges, and within hours, heavy German panzers were rolling into the heart of France. Rommel's strategy was pure madness. He didn't secure his flanks or wait for backup. He simply drove straight through the enemy lines, cutting off French communications and capturing entire regiments while they were still eating breakfast. The speed was so terrifying that French soldiers began surrendering by the thousands, convinced they were fighting a ghost army that could appear anywhere at any time. On May 21, 1940, Rommel's unstoppable run slammed into a brick wall near the town of Arras. The British Army launched a massive counterattack with their heavily armored Matilda tanks. As German anti-tank crews fired shot after shot, they watched in absolute horror as their shells bounced harmlessly off the thick British steel. The British tanks kept advancing, crushing German lines and destroying infantry units. For the first time in the entire campaign, Rommel's division was in real danger of being cut to pieces and completely destroyed. With his standard weapons failing, Rommel made a desperate, revolutionary decision. He ordered his men to bring up the massive 88mm Flak anti-aircraft guns, weapons normally used to shoot down high-flying enemy bombers, lowering these massive barrels flat to point directly at the ground. Rommel ordered them to fire at the oncoming British armor. The result was devastating. The sheer power of the 88mm shells smashed right through the thick British steel, tearing the Matilda tanks apart. Rommel's quick thinking turned a near defeat into a brutal victory, stopping the Allied counterattack dead in its tracks. After crushing the British counterattack at Arras, Rommel unleashed his division like never before. They moved so fast, often covering over 40 miles a day, that both the French and British armies lost track of where Rommel actually was. He would attack a town, capture it, and vanish before the enemy could even send reinforcements. French soldiers began whispering rumors about an invisible force, the Winatabi, Ghost Division, that could walk through walls and strike from the shadows. Rommel's name became synonymous with sudden terror, paralyzing the morale of the Allied soldiers before a single shot was even fired. By early June, Rommel's objective was clear: cut off the Allied forces completely by reaching the English Channel. The Ghost Division raced across the French countryside, bypassing entire cities just to maintain their brutal momentum. British and French troops were being squeezed into smaller and smaller pockets, with their backs literally pushed against the sea. Rommel's tanks were moving so fast that they frequently overran enemy retreat columns from behind, capturing thousands of soldiers who thought they were still miles away from the front line. On June 18, 1940, the Ghost Division arrived at the massive port city of Cherbourg. This was a heavily fortified fortress, protected by giant naval guns and thousands of Allied troops ready for a long, bloody siege. But Rommel didn't believe in long battles. He immediately ordered his artillery to unleash a merciless bombardment on the city, while his tanks rushed the outer gates, standing right at the front lines under constant heavy fire. Rommel personally negotiated with the French governor, demanding an immediate surrender. Seeing the Ghost Division at their doorstep and their defenses shattered, the French fortress collapsed. With Cherbourg captured, the backbone of France was completely broken. Rommel's unstoppable advance had torn a hole so deep in the Allied defense that recovery was now impossible. Paris fell shortly after, and on June 22, 1940, a defeated France was forced to sign an official armistice with Germany. In just 6 weeks, Hitler's army had accomplished what they couldn't do in 4 years during World War I. The world watched in absolute shock as one of the greatest military superpowers on Earth completely collapsed under the brutal speed of the Blitzkrieg. For his legendary exploits, Erwin Rommel was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, Germany's highest military medal. He became a superstar overnight. The German propaganda machine printed his face on magazines and broadcast his victories to millions. People across the country cheered for the Desert Fox in the making, and Hitler himself praised Rommel as the perfect German soldier. From an ordinary division commander, Rommel had transformed into an untouchable national hero, admired by his country and deeply feared by his enemies. Rommel's 6-week campaign in France completely redefined the rules of combat. He proved to the world that numbers and heavy defenses don't matter if your enemy can outrun your decision-making. The Ghost Division became the ultimate textbook example of Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Military academies around the globe would study Rommel's movements for decades to come. He had shown that in the chaos of battle, taking extreme risks, maintaining absolute speed, and trusting a soldier's instinct on the ground could shatter empires. The Battle of France was Rommel's masterclass, establishing his myth that would last until the very end of the war. But the story of the Ghost General does not end in the green fields of France. With this unprecedented victory, Rommel's journey had only just begun. A new command was waiting for him, a challenge far away on another continent. It was in the endless, unforgiving deserts of North Africa that Erwin Rommel would meet his greatest ally, his most dangerous enemies, and earn the name that history would remember forever: the Desert Fox.